What if I told you the Middle East is teetering on the edge of a new Cold War, but no one's talking about it? Let me break it down. We're seeing a perfect storm of chaos right now, Yemen's Houthis launching attacks that feel like they're testing the limits of Saudi patience, while Trump and his allies are playing a dangerous game of brinkmanship with Iran. And here's the kicker, Ted Cruz is suggesting we arm Iranian protesters. Yeah, you read that right. This isn't just about missiles and drones anymore, it's about the unraveling of entire power structures. Personally, I think this is the most underreported crisis of the decade. Why? Because it's not just about who's winning a war, it's about who's trying to collapse a regime without actually declaring war. What makes this really interesting is how the US is trying to balance between military posturing and diplomatic backroom deals, all while the Strait of Hormuz becomes a chessboard for global energy security. If you take a step back, this isn't just about Iran or Saudi Arabia, it's about the entire world's energy arteries being held hostage by a mix of rebels, politicians, and ancient grudges. Let's talk about the Houthis for a second. These aren't just random rebels, they're Iran's proxies, and their attacks on Marib are a calculated move. But here's what's wild, the Saudis are saying they won't back down, yet they're also signing defense pacts with Turkey and Pakistan. That's a sign of desperation. From my perspective, this isn't about defending Yemen anymore, it's about containing a regional domino effect. What many people don't realize is that every time the Houthis strike, they're not just targeting military positions, they're forcing the Saudis into a no-win situation. If they retaliate, they risk escalation. If they don't, they lose credibility. It's a trap, and the world is watching. Now, let's pivot to Ted Cruz's comments. This guy is advocating for arming Iranian protesters, which sounds like a recipe for disaster. In my opinion, this is the kind of rhetoric that could ignite a full-blown revolution, or a full-blown war. What's fascinating is that Cruz is framing this as a regime collapse strategy, but history shows us that arming dissenters rarely leads to peaceful transitions. It usually leads to bloodshed and power vacuums. What this really suggests is that the US is still operating under Cold War logic, thinking that destabilizing a regime is the same as winning. But Iran isn't the Soviet Union. This isn't about ideology, it's about survival. And if you're betting on protesters toppling a regime, you're ignoring the fact that Iran's leadership is deeply entrenched and has the backing of a nuclear program. Then there's the Strait of Hormuz. Trump claims it's sort of open, but the reality is that Iran is holding the world hostage with its demands. The Iran-Oman talks are a desperate attempt to create a new status quo, but let's be honest, this isn't about safety. It's about control. A detail I find fascinating is that Iran wants to regulate ship traffic through their waters, which would give them unprecedented leverage over global oil prices. This raises a deeper question, is the US really in control of this situation, or are we just reacting to Iran's moves? Because if the strait becomes a tollbooth, the entire global economy feels the pain. And yet, Trump is downplaying the risks, insisting everything's great shape while the world holds its breath. Finally, let's not forget the Saudi-Turkey-Pakistan Defense Pact. This is a seismic shift. 3 regional powers aligning against Iran. That's a first. But what does it mean for the region? It could either stabilize things, or turn the Middle East into a proxy war battleground. One thing that immediately stands out is how this pact bypasses traditional Western allies, signaling a new era of power dynamics. What this really implies is that the US is no longer the sole arbiter of Middle Eastern security. And if that's true, then the next few months could redefine the entire geopolitical landscape. So, here's the takeaway, we're not just watching a war, we're witnessing the birth of a new era, one where the lines between ally and adversary blur, and the stakes are nothing less than global stability. What do you think will happen next? I'll be watching closely.